Windows 11.
Cancelled.
It sucks. Oh man, that fact is no secret. The bloat, the spying, the poor performance, the obscene hardware requirements. But there is an alternative that's gaining attention, and that is Linux. And that is one question that I've been getting more often these days is Linux right for me? Well, let's find out. Hi, Chibi Neko here. I don't think I want to call this like a tech tangent or rant, but this is a question I have been getting a little more often. Is Linux? What is Linux? Should I use it? Should I switch? And it's mostly being born out of the frustration of Windows 11 by Microsoft. So first of all, what is Linux? So Linux is not really an operating system per se. It's actually a kernel. Now, what's a kernel? Well, a kernel is really the center of the operating system. It's the core of the computer, and it's what controls everything that it does, the applications, everything. So, but what we're getting now is you can get operating systems built from that central kernel. So the one we know about the most is Windows. However, more and more people are making distros. These are the different versions of Linux operating systems. The most common ones you think of is maybe Red Hat, Fedora, Ubuntu, Mint. There's a ton of them. And the thing is with Linux, it's open source, so anyone really can go into the source code and make their own distro. People do it all the time. But here's the thing though, because of the absolute shittiness that is Windows 11, people are becoming curious, wondering if they should switch to Linux. After all, it's more lightweight, it's secure, there are fewer viruses. Now, that's not to say you shouldn't be careful what you're doing online, but by and large, Linux is probably the most secure system that you can use. In fact, a lot of large-scale databases out there, like data centers, bankings, healthcare, like they all use Linux on their servers. At least most of them do. So I'm gonna go through different categories so we can all decide together if Linux is right for you. So the first category would be a home user. A home user just has their laptop or desktop for home reasons, like the internet. You want to use the internet to go to your socials like Facebook, Twitter. You want to watch YouTube, watch Netflix, maybe type some emails, do some word processing, watch a DVD or a video that you downloaded, or even do things with your iPhone, such as taking off family photos or syncing music. If these are type of things that you do on your computer, congratulations, Linux is perfect for you. In fact, there are some applications that most people use on Windows, in fact, work better on Linux. Case in point would be Microsoft Office. Back in the day, you used to be able to buy the software, install it, and it was yours, but no, you have to pay a subscription. And there is an alternative, which in my opinion is even better than Microsoft Office. That would be Libra. Libra, the user interface is almost identical to Office, so the learning curve is very, very minimal. Also, it can open just about anything, really. There hasn't been a document that I have not been able to open in Libra. Short story, one of my best friends had a bag full of old 3.5-inch floppies. I was able to recover them all, send her all the data, and it had Word documents she could not open in Office. And I recommended Libra to her, and turns out those old documents were created in Corel WordPerfect. Anyone remember that that piece of software, Corel WordPerfect? Anyway, LibreOffice, open it up, no problem. In fact, I don't know if anyone out there can leave a comment answering the question I've always wanted to know is what is it that Office can do that Libra can't? For the life of me, I can't seem to figure that out. I don't know why Microsoft Office is the dominant force in Office software, but yeah, LibreOffice is free, it's open source, it can open anything. Can't recommend it enough. This is probably the best thing to be using for all of your Office needs. In fact, there are some countries in Europe that are switching from Microsoft Office to Libra. So this is definitely, can't recommend this enough. When it comes to using your iPhone, if you have any videos or photos you want to sent to your computer, it's the same thing you would do it in Windows. You just plug it in by USB, you log into your phone, and it uses a software called Pix, P-I-X, and you can surf through your phone, you can pick whatever photos and videos you want to remove from it. You can even sync music to it with a music player called Strawberry. This is the one that I use to play music while I'm working on my computer. And while you're unable to sync playlists, if you just want to pick just a ton of music to sync to your phone or MP3 player, Strawberry will do the job. So I will admit that is one obstacle that Linux can't quite do as well as Apple or Microsoft, is it has access to iTunes. So, but for the basics, yes, for a home user, Strawberry will do the basics of what you want to do when it comes to your iPhone and taking and adding media to it. So gaming is a big one. In fact, it's probably one of the number one reasons why people are hesitant to move from Windows to Linux, because people have the impression that, oh, well, there's a compatibility issue, there's a frame rate issue. Well, believe it or not, Linux has been getting better and better thanks to the compatibility layers. In fact, there is a distro of Linux that is made specifically for gamers. It's called Bazite, and this has everything working out of the box. It has Steam, it has codecs, it has drivers, everything you need. It's growing in popularity, and it's giving confidence to people who want to switch from Windows to Linux for gaming. Now, there is a website I strongly recommend you bookmarking, and that is ProtonDB. Now, Proton is a compatibility layer that is in Steam. There are different versions of it, and it's essentially what makes all of these Windows-based games work on Linux. And there are different results. So what you do, you go, if you're not really sure if the game you want to play will work, you can search for it. And there's even a community that you can interact with to compare notes. So just the other day, there's a game I'm really interested in. It's called Parasite Mutant. There's only a demo on Steam. I want to give it a try. I have Linux on my machine downstairs. So and it's for Windows only. So and here we go. So Parasite Mutant has a gold rating, meaning it runs perfectly after a few tweaks. There's other results here. Okay, Endoparasitic has a platinum ranking, meaning it's flawless. You don't have to make any changes. You just download it, click, and ready to go and play. So let's click on Parasite Mutant. Okay, so this is the form that I looked at, and the great thing is each person has their information, such as what distro they're using, what GPU driver they're using, how much RAM they have, and this person saved my day. They said they switched to the older version of 7.0-6 of Proton, because if I just use the default settings, the game may not have worked. So, and this person is using Gen 2 Linux. I never really heard of that one, but they're using 32 gigs of RAM, which is what I have in a downstairs machine. They have a similar NVIDIA GeForce RTX card that I got. So I changed the Proton version to 7.0-6, restart the client, and the game ran perfectly. So that's what you should do if you are hesitant. Another thing to keep in mind is these days, Linux seems to be performing on par, or if not better, than Windows. Particularly because Windows Update is interfering with NVIDIA drivers. In fact, about a month ago, NVIDIA asked everyone, hey, listen, uninstall, roll back your last Windows Update because it's actually been causing frame rates to drop in half. Now, I'm not one of those people that are obsessed about frame rates. It has to be exactly, a certain number. If it drops by a couple of frames, I don't really notice nor care. However, a drop in 50%, that is huge. That is noticeable. So that is something to consider. Is gaming on Linux perfect? No, it's not. It's always improving, but that's why you use sites like ProtonDB to do your research first before you fully commit from going from Windows to Linux. The third category of users is is a very big one, and that will be the creative user. You're the kind of person who does film and video editing, you like to do audio work, film with a webcam, which I'm doing right now in Linux in OBS Studio, but there is an elephant in the room, and that would be Adobe. Adobe is the primary reason why I can't seem to cut the cord with Windows because it has a workflow that most of us creative people are used to using, and changing your workflow to learn another piece of software is a bottleneck that I completely understand is not something that most of us are willing to do. It takes time, and if you're being paid to do that kind of work, time isn't something that you really have. You want to be able to do the same quality of work you did with Adobe in the alternatives. Now, I'm not going to lie, many of the alternatives do work pretty, quite well, and they're all open source and they're free. And if you're willing to take the time or even do basic work, they're not that bad at all. For film editing, I do use Kdenlive. Kdenlive has a similar user interface as Adobe Premiere, which is why for simpler projects I have no issues of just dragging and dropping all of my video in there, doing cropping, any small effects, and it renders in full 4K. You can click and drag a video you made on your phone, works just fine. There are more advanced options like DaVinci Resolve. That's actually the biggest competitor to Adobe right now for film editing. And unfortunately, it does have a steeper learning curve, but the people who have it mastered, they say it is amazing. So if you're willing to put the time and effort into DaVinci Resolve, that's a good way to cut the the cord of Adobe. For photos, however, there are simpler ones like GIMP and Curita. Curita, I think is how you pronounce it. But Curita, I played around with it. It's really good for digital brushing, digital painting. Curita looks similar to Photoshop. However, the shortcut keys that most of us are used to, again, it's all about the workflow, muscle memory at this point. GIMP is decent. Probably the best one though would be Photopea. It's not a piece of software, it's web-based, but it works almost identical to Photoshop. It's great if you're on the road with your laptop and you don't have Adobe Photoshop with you. You just go to this website and you can just do quick photo editing on the spot, download your work, and you are good to go. Now you're probably saying to yourself, well, I'm a combination of all three. I'm a home user, but I like to do some gaming. I'm a home user that likes to crop some videos, do some photo editing, stream in OBS Studio, which I'm using right now. I'm not streaming, but I am using OBS Studio on Linux right now. And there's probably some Windows software that you really need to use, which can work on Linux, although you have to use a compatibility layer called Wine. Unfortunately, it's not perfect. Case in point would be Adobe. I did try. I do own the CS4 collection. I primarily use Adobe Photoshop, which works just fine. I don't see why people use Adobe Creative Cloud if they already have CS4, 5, or 6 in Photoshop. I actually tried to get this to work on Linux. I went through numerous resources and forums. People claim to be able to do it, but unfortunately I have not. So that is why I have to use Windows to use anything involving Adobe if I got to do anything more advanced that I feel that I can't do with the alternatives in Linux. So what if you're in that situation? What if you do use Adobe, or you have that one piece of software that has to work in Windows that you can't quite get to work in Linux even with Wine? Well, you can do a method called dual boot. That is what I do right now on my main computer. I have 5 machines in this house. They all use Linux except for this one. If you have a laptop that has a decent sized hard drive, what you can do is you can partition the drive, have Windows on one and have Linux on the other. So when you turn on the computer, you can pick which operating system you want to use. So if you're a home user, you can just use Linux, and you have this one day that you got to do some advanced photo editing. You can just boot in Windows for that reason. Now, I would not recommend you do this on a single hard drive. Reason for that is because there have been some Windows 11 updates that either interfered with that partition or erased it altogether. It wasn't that long ago that there was I seen a video and multiple users complaining that, hey, listen, my Linux won't even boot. I'm getting this error message. I actually did a video about this not that long ago. This is with Windows 10, but in Windows 11, there have been some cases of the entire Linux partition being erased, including with any critical data that the user had. So what I recommend, if it's within the budget, because things are getting a little out of hand now when it comes to storage base, is you put your operating systems on separate hard drives. My main tower has 3. One has Windows 10, one has Linux Mint, and the other one is just data. Plain, like all my personal stuff, like whether it be music, photos, videos, or text, or anything like that. I use Grub as my booter, so when I turn on the computer, it default boots into Linux Mint, but the menu's still there, so I can just click down and go into Windows 10. And right now, I'm to the point that I literally only use Windows 10 if I want to make playlists to sync onto my phone, and if I want to use anything involved with my Adobe CS4. Other than that, I'm Linux. Everything I do is on Linux. So, with all that being said, you're probably saying to yourself, well, gosh darn it, I want to give this a try. Well, the next question is, which distro is for you? And the best thing about Linux is you don't have to install it to use it. If you just want to give a test run, you can download a distro, put it into a USB drive, boot it up, and you can look around. And if anything, I highly recommend that you do have a Linux bootable drive, even if you're going to stay with Windows, because in the event that your Windows does not boot up properly or gets fried, you can at least boot into Linux and surf through the Windows hard drive to recover any critical data that you want to save. And I have done this before. I had an old laptop I could not recover anything from, so just took the hard drive out, plugged into a Linux machine, used Linux to recover the data, just fine. So, what distro is best for you? Well, if you are a home user, just the regular stuff for internet and web and word processing, I recommend one of 2. There is Linux Mint, which is the one that I am using. This is probably the most Windows-esque, looking distro there is. It looks and operates just like Windows. The only real difference would be the file path. Like there is no C drive / Windows / whatever. However, finding your data is very simple. You use it in a home folder. It's all there. If you have a separate hard drive, you can just move all your data there for safekeeping. But it's the same kind of interface. You just point, click, and away you go. Another one you can use is Zorin OS. This one's getting very, very popular. It's very smooth, it's very clean. However, this is the kind that you would use for newer systems. If you're using Windows 10 or Windows 11 and you still kind of like that interface, this is definitely a good one for you. Again, if you're a gamer, Bazite has everything you need working out of the box. Need I say more? Now, what if you have a older computer, a potato or semi-old potato? The great thing about Linux is you can choose a very lightweight distro that will breathe new life into your hardware, so you can keep it longer. Because let's face it, everything is getting super expensive. RAM, we're in a RAM crisis right now, and that crisis is now bleeding over into storage. External storage like hard drives. This is a WD. Apparently storage has been sold out for 2026, I believe, already. External SSDs. These are a hot commodity right now. So if you can get them for a decent price, I'd definitely go for it. But if you have an older computer, you can still use Linux Mint, but there are later versions. There we go to download. So Cinnamon Edition, this is the standard one you use if you have a computer that's like, I don't know, 5 years or newer. XFCE edition. This is the one that I have on all of our older systems. I actually got a computer in my kitchen we use just to watch video. That computer is probably 10 years old plus, and it works just fine. My husband has a laptop that I like to call Blueberry. It's a light laptop from 2016. It has 4 gigs of RAM, 30 gigs of hard drive space, and XFCE edition of Mint works just fine. So if your computer's older, don't worry too much. Other good alternatives are Linux Lite. Very minimal hardware requirements to use this one. There's Puppy Linux. This is how it looks. Same sort of thing. It has a menu, point and click, very light, and Q4OS. This is what I like to call a Windows XP clone. I have this on this very old MSI U100. This machine is meant for Windows XP. Identical Q4OS, and while it does take a while to boot, it works just fine. So anyway, that is all I have to say on this matter. Do your research, pick the right distro. You can just give it a try. You don't have to commit to it. But if you are any of the category of user that I listed, Linux is definitely for you to give it a try. And if it's not completely your thing, well, you can always dual boot. You can keep Windows for the Windows only things that require. So anyway, this is Chibi Neko signing out, and have a fun time computing. Bye!